The knock on my door didn't sound angry. It sounded official. Measured, certain, final. I remember staring at the brass handle as if it might turn by itself. Outside, a car engine idled. A shadow moved past the frosted glass. For a strange second, I thought maybe it was a delivery, maybe a mistake, maybe nothing that could fracture the last stable thing in my life. Then the knock came again. 3 firm strikes. The kind that don't ask permission. When I opened the door, the man standing there didn't look cruel. He looked bored, detached. He held out a thick envelope and said my name like he was reading it off a grocery list. Mark Carter. I nodded. You've been served. And just like that, the ground beneath 32 years of memories shifted. The maple tree in the yard swayed gently in the wind. The porch light flickered. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Inside that envelope was a sentence I never imagined I would read, my own son's name printed against mine in a courtroom battle. But here's the part that will keep you listening. They thought they were taking my house. They had no idea I had already taken away the only thing they truly wanted. And by the time the judge struck the gavel, the surprise waiting for them would change our family forever. Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Mark, and I am 59 years old. At 59, you believe you've already survived the worst storms life can throw at you. You believe the house you built with your own hands is more than bricks, it's proof that you endured. You believe your child, the boy you once carried on your shoulders, would never turn that house into a weapon. You believe wrong. The day I received the court papers, my hands didn't shake. They went cold. The envelope was thick, official, cruelly polite. My son's name was printed at the top, Daniel Carter versus Mark Carter. Underneath it, in smaller letters, was his wife's name, Emily. They weren't asking. They were suing me to take my house. The house that was never just a house. I bought this place 32 years ago, back when my late wife, Susan, and I had more dreams than money. It was a modest 2-story house on the edge of town, peeling paint, crooked fence, stubborn plumbing. But it was ours. We painted every wall together. We planted a maple tree in the yard when Daniel was 5. Susan used to say the house had a heartbeat. It echoed with birthday laughter, arguments over homework, the smell of cinnamon every December. When Susan died 8 years ago, cancer hollowed out my world but left the house standing. Daniel cried in my arms at the funeral. "I'll always take care of you, Dad," he whispered. I believed him. The change. Daniel changed after he married Emily. At first it was subtle, fewer visits, shorter phone calls, polite smiles that didn't reach his eyes. Emily was charming in public, soft voice, perfect manners, but there was something sharp behind her gaze, something calculating. She would walk through my living room and say things like, "This place must be worth a fortune now." I brushed it off. Until the conversations turned direct. "Dad," Daniel said one evening, sitting stiffly across from me at the kitchen table, "you should think about signing the house over to us, for estate planning." "I'm not dead yet," I replied, half laughing. He didn't laugh. "It would just make things easier," Emily added. "We're starting a family, stability matters." "So does respect," I said quietly. The room turned cold. The ultimatum. 3 months later, they stopped visiting. 2 months after that, the lawsuit arrived. Their claim was absurd, that I had promised the house to Daniel years ago, and that I was now mentally unstable and incapable of managing my property. Mentally unstable. At 59. Because I refused to hand over the home his mother died in. That word hurt more than the lawsuit. It wasn't about money, it was about erasing me. The loneliness of betrayal. There is a particular silence that comes when your own child becomes your opponent. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Small towns feed on whispers. I imagined the rumors, "Poor Daniel, his father must be slipping. Maybe it's time." I would sit in the living room at night, staring at Susan's photo above the fireplace. "Did we raise him wrong?" I whispered once. The only answer was the ticking clock. But beneath the grief, something else was growing. Not anger. Resolve. The nasty surprise. What Daniel and Emily didn't know was, that I had spent the last year preparing for a possibility exactly like this. After Susan passed, I met with an old friend, Thomas Reid, who had become a property attorney. He had given me advice I never thought I'd need. "Mark," he said, "love your son, but protect yourself. Grief makes people vulnerable." I listened. 2 years ago, I transferred the house into an irrevocable trust, the Susan Carter Memorial Housing Trust. The terms were simple. I would have full lifetime residency. Upon my death, the house would not go to Daniel. It would be sold, and every penny would fund housing assistance for widows over 55 in our county. Daniel would receive $1. A symbolic inheritance. Not out of spite, but as a reminder that love cannot be extorted. Court day. The courtroom smelled like dust and tension. Daniel avoided my eyes, Emily didn't. The lawyer spoke confidently, painting me as confused, agging, irrational. Then my attorney stood. He presented the trust documents. The judge adjusted her glasses, flipping through the pages carefully. "You transferred ownership 2 years ago?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor." "To an irrevocable trust?" "Yes." Daniel's face drained of color. Emily's perfect composure cracked. The judge looked at their attorney. "There is no property for your clients to claim. The plaintiff does not own this house." The gavel struck. Case dismissed. Just like that. The aftermath. Outside the courthouse, Daniel finally looked at me. "You did this to punish us," he said, voice shaking. "No," I replied, "you did this to yourself." Emily grabbed his arm, pulling him away. That was the last time I saw them. The truth about revenge. Hear what no one tells you about betrayal. Revenge doesn't feel triumphant. It feels quiet. When I walked back into my house that evening, the maple tree outside swaying in the wind, I didn't feel victorious. I felt older, but I also felt free. They wanted my house. They forgot it was built by a man who survived losing the love of his life. You cannot intimidate someone who has already buried their heart. The unexpected letter. 3 months later, I received a letter. It was from Daniel. Not typed. Handwritten. "Dad, I don't know how we became enemies. I was angry. I felt entitled. I let fear guide me. I'm sorry." There was no mention of the trust. No demand. Just a shaky apology. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time before replying. "Son, a house is wood and stone. A father is flesh and memory. You almost traded one for the other. I hope you never make that mistake again." I didn't remove him from my life, but I did remove access to my vulnerability. Forgiveness does not mean surrender. The maple tree. Last autumn, Daniel came alone. He stood awkwardly by the maple tree we planted decades ago. "It's gotten big," he said. "So have you," I replied. We didn't hug immediately. Healing takes time. But we talked. Not about the lawsuit. About Susan, about childhood, about the way grief can twist people into strangers. Emily did not come. I didn't ask why. What I learned at 59. At 59, I learned something I wish I had understood earlier. Love without boundaries invites exploitation. Kindness without strength invites control. And family without respect becomes just biology. I did not surprise my son with cruelty. I surprised him with preparation. The house still stands. The trust still exists. And someday when I'm gone, widows who feel as alone as I once did will find shelter because of Susan's name. That is my real legacy. Not resentment. Not revenge. Protection. The moral. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Never confuse love with surrender. Protect what you build, protect your dignity, protect your peace. And remember, the greatest surprise you can give those who underestimate you is not anger. It is strength.